Welcome to Custom Animation's presentation on confined spaces. So, what do we mean by a confined space? A confined space is generally an area that has inadequate ventilation. The space can be enclosed or partially enclosed and is not intended for continuous human occupancy. Access, egress, and workspace are often restrictive and poorly lit, preventing a fast escape if there was an emergency. A confined space is sometimes determined by the hazards associated with a specific situation, not just because work is in a small area. Some examples of confined spaces include sewers and pits, crawl spaces and attics, boilers and storage tanks, ventilation shafts and access tunnels, telecommunications vaults and elevator shafts. Asphyxiation and death can occur when entering a confined space with an inadequate level of oxygen. This process happens when other gases, such as chemical vapors or smoke, displace the oxygen in a confined space. These gases could result from a leaking natural gas pipe or chemical processes, such as welding fumes or generator exhaust. In the case of trenches, pipes, and tanks, the hazard may be from the release or movement of large volumes of water, soil, or other materials. The evaluation of asphyxiants must be determined by the risk assessment process. Ensure all mitigation controls and risk assessments are properly documented. Before entering a confined space, an authorized person must use a suitable gas detector to determine the oxygen level. As low oxygen levels are the most common cause of death in confined spaces, accurate oxygen level measurements are essential. Hence, an appropriate calibrated and well-maintained oxygen meter is critical. The oxygen level of the air is 21%. Never enter a confined space if the oxygen level is below 19.5%, or due to the increased fire hazard when oxygen exceeds 23%. Never enter a confined space to rescue someone unconscious unless wearing a breathing apparatus. In such a situation, contact your local emergency services. They have the suitable equipment to attempt a rescue. The atmosphere must be tested if any confined space contains flammable, explosive, or toxic substances. This monitoring must be carried out by a trained and competent person using a suitable and correctly calibrated gas detector. Flammable vapor must be less than 5% of the lower explosion limit. Hydrogen sulfide must not exceed 20 parts per million. Carbon dioxide must remain below 30 parts per million. Ensure all measurements are probably documented. Only workers with the relevant qualifications will be permitted to enter a confined space. Personnel must complete and sign the required confined space permit before entering any confined space. Ensure all the appropriate PPE is evaluated and used. Personal air monitors must always be worn. Ensure harnesses have a current test certificate. All personnel entering a confined space from above must be connected to the rescue winch. Anyone entering a confined space must have a spotter. The standby person must monitor the well-being of those inside the confined space. If a serious incident occurs, the standby person will immediately contact your local emergency services. If you have any concerns or questions, ask your supervisor.